Hi, I'm Old Sneelock. Welcome to another episode of Old Sneelock's Workshop. Have you ever run across the thing where you've seen something on YouTube or in a catalog or something else and said, boy, I wish I had one of those. But you go into the Lee Valley catalog and the price is out of sight. You go on eBay and somebody wants an arm and a leg for it. You go down to the local hardware store and they look at you like you got two heads. Why not just make your own? Well, it sounds easy, but if you don't have an idea where to start, you're kind of stuck. I'm going to give you some ideas. We did a video on this number 80. Sharpened the blade up, made it so it cut pretty well. Having a number 80 is a cool thing. I just happen to have one. Not everybody does. You can use a handheld scraper. One of these, they're really nice. I got this one in an estate sale. Cost me a couple of bucks. You don't find them at every estate sale. So what do you do if you want to have a scraper? Well, you can go the quick and dirty way. This is a Stanley chisel. It's not a great chisel, it's not a bad chisel, it's just a Stanley chisel. With a Stanley chisel and holding the blade perpendicular to the surface, it'll scrape. Not perfect. You can put a hook on it. I'm not going to hook this one because I don't need to have a hook on this chisel. But you could put a hook on it very similar to the way that I did it on the 80. But maybe you don't have a Stanley chisel. Maybe you got a putty knife. This is an extremely abused putty knife. The handle's been hammered on, the ferrule is bent, but the blade is made out of a surprisingly good spring steel. And if you take the putty knife, just like I did with the chisel, it'll scrape. Like the chisel, not a great job, but we can improve that. This is just a cheap putty knife. Just like we did on the 80, you draw file it. What we're looking for is just to get it square across the end. Doesn't take a whole lot. Then we put our little bevel on it. 45 works just fine. Now, if you happen to be one of those lucky guys that has a grinder or a belt sander or a 4.5-inch angle grinder, all these things can be done that way too. You don't have to use a file. Now we take, in this case, a Phillips screwdriver. You can use anything you want. Old drill bit, anything as long as it's a hardened piece of steel. And you run that across the end. All we're trying to do is bend a hook on that. Doesn't take much. Then we go back to our handy piece of poplar. And now we're actually taking shavings. You can work it either direction. For me, it's a little easier to control coming towards me. Cuts right along. Say you don't have a putty knife. Well, more's the pity. Sorry for your luck. But you can use pretty much any piece of spring steel. Now, saw blades are a favorite. This saw blade is totally shot. It's got so many holes in it, it's not worth saving. I'm going to put on a pair of gloves just so I don't catch myself onto something and cause any injury that I have to wipe the blood off of parts again. It's always annoying when I have to do that. Doesn't take much, and you've got yourself a snapped off saw blade. And once again, take our file or grinder or sanding paper or rub it on a piece of concrete, any way you want to go at it. Got a nice bevel on there. Now I'm going to roll a burr. If you don't happen to have a file, a piece of sandpaper works just as well. All you're really looking for is making that edge straight and flat. So when you put the burr on it, you get a nice curl. Now I've just taken all my previous burr off of there. Does just as well as the number 80. You can see in about 2 minutes we made a scraper that does a fine job. Now if I was going to be using this steadily, and I probably will complete the process, I would grind off those teeth. Not really worthwhile having that into your fingers there as you're trying to run the thing. Now we've taken our scraper and we we ground away most of the edge except for that little corner over there. And that works. I'm cutting a trench right down through there. But say I want to cut a really nice clean trough in the wood. And I want to have it cut exactly where I want it. Well, I can take a couple of pieces of wood. Now you can be as fancy with this as you want. But I'm going to use these 2 pieces of wood. And I'm going to clamp them together. Just like that. Because we all know that we never have the stuff that we want. And we're making do. We're improvising a scraper. Because, you know, if we could just go down to Lee Valley and tell them, give me one, they'd be happy to loan one to you. I don't think so. They'd probably sell you one though. And they want to have $1.25 anyways. So we take our little scraper blade and we mount it in between 2 boards with a couple of clamps. We just leave a little bit of the blade sticking out, and we have this board up a little higher because we got to give it room for the chips together. Well, that's all well and good, but you know, we really want to have it a set distance from the edge. So how do we make that happen? If you have enough C-clamps, you just put a fence on it. Well, the fence up against the wood. And you have a nice little trench. Set distance from the edge. Okay, I hear somebody in the back of the room. I don't have any C-clamps. Nail this thing together, glue it together, screw it together, have your sister hold the 2 pieces together. However you want to do it. Hold the pieces together, put this fence on it in a set place, because all we've got invested in this right now is 3 pieces of wood and a broken saw blade. I hear you muttering in the back. You don't have an old broken handsaw, and you don't want to wreck your new one. Okay. You can use the putty knife that we already talked about. That worked. You can use a hacksaw blade. A little thin, but they work. You can use a sawzall blade. They actually work remarkably well. They're kind of stiff. In other words, anything that's strong enough and hard enough to hold an edge, you can use. Now I've given you all the hints I can think of today on how to make a scraper, what you can make it out of, what you can do with it once you've got it made. And it's all made out of junk. If you have any suggestions for new video, questions about today's video, or any of the other videos on the channel, just drop a note in the comments. You know I read them all. Thanks for watching. Tomorrow we're going to get into a whole new thing. We're going to do a collaboration with Chris Anderson. A whole new thing.